That number, 6% of America agrees with Karine Jean-Pierre that there is no evidence at all of something unethical or illegal. 6% is a staggeringly low.
And I think the numbers would be even higher if all of the media outlets were really covering this the way that they should. There's so much evidence. 6% said nothing wrong, something illegal, and 51%, more than half the country, does believe that they believe that he was involved in his son's business dealings.
Where do you think that number was in 2020?
Oh, I mean, it was...
And we didn't even know about this story then.
I mean, Donald Trump, he brought it up during the debates, but the stories got suppressed.
Got shut down by the moderator.
Yeah.
Got shut down by Joe Biden.
Shut down by
social media. Not true about the laptop. I don't know anything about my son's business dealings. Everybody said he doesn't know. And now everyone goes, he knows. And the inquiry hasn't started. Can you imagine if you find out more about the interaction with the 5,000 pseudonames, 5,000 plus? Why was Hunter CC'd on them? And all the other things it has to do with the president. For example, we know this. He lied about saying, I know nothing about my son's business dealings. Then he lied about saying, I've never been involved with them. And now we know that he is going to sit there and he's been put in the place with the people his son did business with. So you can no longer say Hunter's the problem. You could say that Joe associated with Hunter when he was maybe not doing as much drugs then, was able to fly to country and do, to a degree, these deals. And if we could get those suspicious
activity reports, SARS?
Yeah, those SARS reports. That would blow this whole thing.
More than 150 of them, according to the bank records. You know, it's like what Jim Jordan was saying yesterday. It's pretty simple when you just break it down to look at what happened in Ukraine. Just that one incident. He was on the board of Burisma. He's making millions of dollars. There's a prosecutor that thinks there's shady stuff happening. So he's going to investigate the head of the board and the entire board. He was interviewed with Brian. He said he believes that Devon Archer and Hunter Biden were doing shady things. Then the president gets involved. He goes over there. He fires that prosecutor who's investigating Burisma in exchange for your tax dollars. He says, I will give Ukraine $1 billion in U.S. tax dollars if you fire this prosecutor, then bragged about it on camera later.
Yeah, it's going to take one of those emails with the pseudonym. You're exactly right. One of those suspicious activity reports. Or one of those voicemails that some have said are out there of Joe or Hunter in phone calls between them and the board of Burisma.
But you're not allowed to leverage U.S. tax dollars.
Well, of course not. That would be a crime.
I agree.
That would be impeachable, and Joe Biden knows exactly why House Republicans are well, maybe he does.
Isn't that what they accused Donald Trump of doing?
Absolutely.
And they got their money anyway.
Yes.
Right. But he sent Rudy Giuliani in to find out what's up with this Biden story. What's up with him, his business dealings? And they said, well, wait a second. He could be a political opponent. How dare you use the White House to do that? And then Nancy Pelosi went to town.
Yeah. A lot of people now are questioning whether or not he's the right guy to run for president, not only questioning his age. The majority of Americans on both sides of the aisle are questioning his age. There's a recent poll, Quinnipiac. Are you firmly set on your choice for 2024 Democratic nomination? And the total Democratic voters, 58% of them said they might change their mind. 39% said they're firmly set. Out of the Biden supporters, 51%, more than half of his supporters said they might change. 46% said they're firmly set.
Yeah, they see what's in front of them. They see the press conference he had yesterday in the cabinet with his cabinet officials where he mumbled for a few minutes and then handed it over to Jill. We know they still live in a dangerous world. Here's the latest approval rating among all voters. This is all voters. 39 and 36. Total approval rating. I mean, that's a duo.
Joe Biden's
right
getting a 39% favorability, and then Kamala's 36. She's lower than he is.
The plan was he wants to be a space filler, 4 years, hand it off to a very competent, young, exciting vice president. And he picked Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris has not stepped up in anybody's eyes, not Democrats' eyes, not Republicans' eyes. And you see those polls. For general election voters, likely voters, they don't accept it. If you watched her Sunday, she hasn't done her studying in order to handle the most difficult issues, let alone letting people feel as though she could take the job. I thought Dick Cheney could take the job. I thought that Joe Biden was experienced enough should something happen to Barack Obama. I think that most people thought that Al Gore could take the job for Bill Clinton.
Or Pence could do
right.
it.
Pence could do it for Trump. I don't know anybody that says Kamala Harris would
Even
be
Nancy
perfect.
Pelosi, she was
Right.
dodging the question and said, as vice president, they don't really do anything anyway. Listen.
Vice
Whether
President
that
Kamala
what they
Harris,
don't
the
do.
best running mate for this president?
He thinks so, and that's what matters. And by the way,
think so?
she's very politically astute. I don't think people give her enough credit. People shouldn't underestimate what Kamala Harris brings to the table.
But do you think she is the best running mate, though?
She's the vice president of the United States. So when people say to me, well, why isn't she doing this or that? I said, because she's the vice president. That's the job description. You don't do that much.
She's doing exactly what she should do. Nothing.
Well, then she said she's politically astute and people don't give her enough credit, but then she says she doesn't do anything.
She tried very hard to
know.
say something complimentary, but you
Right.
know underneath the surface, she's not a fan.
This isn't America where Teddy Roosevelt was vice president, says the worst job in the world. That changed. I mean, Al Gore was extremely busy. Dick Cheney wasn't busy as a vice president. Mike Pence handled the COVID attack plan. Mike Pence was dealing with legislative issues because Donald Trump had no experience. If she's doing nothing, it's her own choice. You know that book that came out? She evidently said, I don't want to get involved in racial issues. Don't give me the border, it's too difficult.
No women's issues
No
either.
women's issues either.
Yeah.
So if she does nothing, that's her choice.
I think, I don't know if people really know what she's doing behind the scenes. I think it's more of when she gives interviews, she can't answer questions. She's
think
all over
she's
the
doing a
place.
lot
I
behind the
don't
scenes?
think. I don't believe so. She's the border czar. Nothing's happening there. But I think more people would give her an opportunity and a chance if she were really great when she has these interviews. But she feels to me that she's so unsure of herself, and she reads the critics and she reads what people say about her, and that really gets under her skin. It worries her, I think. And then when she does an interview, she's not sure of herself.
I think you're right about that. And then also, she hasn't taken an issue and seized on it. It was supposed to be the border. She said, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
If you take one signature issue and you take it off the president's plate, people give you credit for that. And that just hasn't
if she
really.
just took one issue and did a great job with it and was very confident when she did interviews, then I think things could change.
We thought she took abortion. And then you watch with Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation. And she
can't
knows
answer
the
the question.
counter narrative from Republicans is, what is the week that is your week that you would allow an abortion? You'd feel good about abortion. Just changes the subject.
Just kept going
coming after the same
Roe-
thing.
Roe v.
Wade got to be reinstalled. Excuse me. Just name the week. Just name the week, because Republicans are saying you'll do it to the time of birth. She's like, well, that's ridiculous. I went back to Roe v. Wade. I mean, you took one issue, you got a little bit of credit for it, and then you dropped the ball when pressed on it. So this story, I think, is huge. So if you look at David Ignatius, he is really respected in international circles, especially.
He's on your radio show a lot, right?
He's yeah, he is, and he's very extremely well known. And nobody,
Columnist for Washington Post.
And he does mostly, he's got contacts. He does mostly international stuff. But he is so tapped into Washington. I didn't know this, but his dad was too. He was a higher up in the Washington Post, so he really grew up at the Washington Post. So this is akin to, I think, the Democratic establishment saying, Joe, you got a small window to step aside for us to get somebody in there to compete for the primary process. Listen to what David Ignatius wrote and then talked about that day. Joe, step out.
My impression from talking to people in Washington and around the country is that she has not been successful in the way that she would want in getting traction as vice president. The key question with somebody who's as old as President Biden will be is whether people see the vice president as a strong successor. So far, I don't think she's made that case to the country. If she's going to make it, now's the time.
And what he said prior to that and wrote about, I should have tossed to that better, is that he says, Joe, thank you for a great job. You're awesome, but you're done.
Well, if you read his latest column about this, he says, it's like pains him to actually actually say it because he loves Joe Biden so much.
He got blasted
But
on NBC for saying it.
He said, but Joe Biden, he said, your greatest achievement with Kamala Harris was stopping Trump. Now it's time for you to step aside and let someone else. He goes after his age. He says when the majority of Americans, Democrats and Republicans, believe that you're too old, it's time to step aside. And he says that Joe should not have put his son on the Burisma board, not allowed it to happen.
Absolutely.
Some other hosts of other MSNBC shows, though, multiple of them said 100% of the time when they talk to Democrats off camera, and they talk to a lot of them, those Democrats say, Joe's too old. He should step aside. What they say on camera is completely different than what they say off camera, and David Ignatius was the only one willing to say it out loud.
Yeah.
What everyone's thinking.
Well, I
in
hope
Washington,
Democrats
D.C.
know we're talking about the president of our country. If he gets elected and he has 4 more years, he'll be 86 at the end. He'll be 86 when he is at the end of that presidency, at the end of his next term. So I hope you know if he decides to step down, it's Kamala Harris that becomes the president.
Unless he does it real soon and they create a nominating process.
Exactly. They're running out of time.
Yeah.
It's going, after the midterms, I didn't think we'd be having this conversation because he did well in the midterms.
The
His
White
party
House
did
is
well.
tonight. They're full throttle. They're for this. They're
Okay.
saying he's running.
Good luck with that joystick.